there, my name is Shagufta and you're watching the Seriously Planning BookTube show. Today I am excited, super excited to share with you a book I just finished called Before We Visit the Goddess by Chitra Bannerjee Divakaruni. This book is, I don't know what to say about it. It's one of the best books I've read this year for sure. And there's so much to say about this book. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plot and then a few of my reflections. So this book is about three generations of women: Savitri, her daughter Bella, and Bella's daughter Tara, and their lives, both their individual lives and their relationship as mother and daughter. The book starts out with Savitri getting a phone call from her daughter Bella, who lives in the US. Savitri is in her ancestral village in India, where she moved after retirement. And Bella is very distraught because her daughter Tara has just decided to drop out of university. And Bella is calling her mother to say, please write to your granddaughter, tell her this is a mistake and convince her not to drop out. And Savitri gets out of bed, starts writing to her granddaughter, which is hard because she's never met her granddaughter. And she starts writing cliches and then throws those sheets of paper away and starts writing about her own life, about her life as a young girl, her own disappointments, her own heartbreaks. And by the end of that letter, no spoilers, this happens in the first chapter, she passes away. The rest of the book is about memories of Bella and the life of Bella and the life of Tara. The book plays around with narrator voice, so this parts of the book that are told from Tara's perspective are in the first person and also third person narrator. So the parts of the book that are from Savitri and Bella's perspective are told in the third person. They're referred to as Savitri and Bella. So both the perspective of the difference in narrator voice and the changing time period make this book a very interesting read. But in addition to that, this book is just written so beautifully that it creates a world that is very difficult to escape from. I am battling a bit of a cold, a bit of flu right now, and I sat yesterday and read this book from start to finish. I couldn't move. I had to know what happened to these characters, what happened to these incredible women, and there's many different reasons I love this book. So the first reason is I love the complex characters, the messiness of the characters, their flawed nature, and their fierceness and their strength. The women described in this book are not weak. They're lionesses. They protect their daughters with everything they have. So for these characters, this book is wonderful because it gives you complex characterization that I know, certainly in my own reading recently, I haven't seen. It also gives you an incredible exploration of the mother-daughter relationship. So it shows you how complicated this relationship is, the heartbreaks and the exacting standards and the disappointments and the forgiveness and the resentments and the grudges that develop between mothers and daughters. And yet it shows you the love and the depth of that love in that relationship. This book shows how the mothers in this book forgive their daughters again and again, but the daughters find it more difficult. And when the daughters become mothers, they see their mothers in a different light and they understand their mothers a lot better. Sometimes the rift between them has become too wide to cross, but the love never really disappears. The love is always there, even though sometimes they don't speak to each other for long periods in this book. So the way this relationship, the mother-daughter relationship, is characterized in this book and explored is magnificent, and for this reason this book is worth reading. It is a love story, but not a love story in the conventional sense, and certainly the men in this book play marginal roles, but it is a love story between mothers and daughter, and how those who have passed from our lives still influence our lives. So this book, I say it's about three generations of women, but really it's about four generations of women, because Savitri's mother is remembered in this book and influences each generation of women that follows her, even though they haven't met her. And her name is Durga, and she was an incredible sweet maker. And then Savitri, to support her family, opens a sweet shop called Durga Sweets to remember her mother. Bella in the US takes her cooking very seriously and cooks for her husband incredibly well and remembers a sweet shop. And Tara is not so good of a cook but tries to become better throughout this book. So this book shows us that there are legacies that those who come before us give us, and sometimes we don't even realize. We don't know where the parts that make us up come from, but often they come from these incredible people that give us our genes and our strength and our courage, though we didn't know them. This book also explores the hopes and dreams of women. Savitri's mother, Durga, had wanted to go to college and had to get married. Savitri tries to go to college, ends up being unable to finish. She deeply hopes for her daughter to get an education and to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. Her daughter is also unable to finish, and then Thara makes that own choice. So you see how each mother desperately hopes her daughter doesn't do the same things and doesn't follow the same patterns her own life followed, but at the same time these patterns are deep rooted, and somehow, even without meeting, there are traces of history that threads throughout our lives. I thought that was really powerful. It also describes immigrant experience, and it describes Bella coming to the US, being really uncertain about the culture, having to lug groceries, having to go to a laundromat to do her laundry, having to struggle with a minimum wage job, going to a country without any qualifications and trying to figure out what kinds of things can you do in a country when you haven't been educated there, and doing things like childcare and cleaning and things like that. And it gives you a perspective on the immigrant experience. When I read Bella's story, it made me think of Rupi Kaur's poem Broken English, which I'll try and link below, which is about the accents our mothers have and how there are stories behind those accents, and they're not something to be laughed at or derided. This book, it's not a typical story of sadness or heartbreak. It is a story of hope and resilience, and there are sad and challenging moments, but this is not a sad book. This is an incredibly triumphant and brave and courageous book. And those are my thoughts on Before We Meet the Goddess by Chitra Bannerjee Divakaruni. For more reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.